You're listening to the Iterators of the Imperium.
Hi, I'm MEZ, and I'm here with my co-host Ryan, and you're listening to Season 3 of the Iterators of the Imperium podcast, the podcast in which Ryan is the expert on Warhammer 40K, and I'm the noob trying to learn about the Warhammer universe. And as you guys can see, for Season 3 now, we do actually have visuals on our podcast, and this goes for both YouTube and Spotify, so if you're not listening on YouTube or Spotify, please go and check it out. It's actually quite funny to see our visual studio. And you can join us inside of our spacious room here. But yeah, let's actually get into it. So, Ryan, what is today's topic?
So, right, I had a little thought about this, actually, right? Something occurred to me while I was organising the notes for this episode, right? Oh, two things that I wanted to mention before we got into this one. One of them is actually something related to the lore. The other one is just nonsense that is prompted by the lore that I thought you might find amusing. So I'm going to do the nonsense first, because it's a nice quick one, right? So I was trying to look into the origins of the names of the Primarchs a little bit more, right?
Okay.
And I came across a post on Reddit, which someone had responded to someone asking basically the question I was asking in really nice detail. So they explained how Lionel Johnson is named after an ancient poet and stuff like that. How Vulcan's name comes from, I think it's a Greek translation, or volcano, but also it's to do with some of their gods, stuff like that. And I found it really interesting. And then someone had commented on it as a comment, like, on that post, just saying that the Rock, you know, the Dark Angel's base, like now that it's just floating on an asteroid, is apparently named after a gay bar in Nottingham, which I found really funny.
I thought you were about to say it's named after the actor.
I wish. Actually, no. I feel like the gay bar's a much better origin.
I mean, fair game.
I just found that entertaining. I don't know how true that is. I just saw it on a Reddit comment, but if that's actually true, which I quite believe it is, that's excellent.
All right,
now,
then.
The thing that occurred to me while I was organising the notes for the episode, you don't know why it's called Warhammer, do you? We never mentioned that, did we?
What? Oh, you're blowing my mind right now. We've been talking about this for quite some time now, over a year. And actually, no, I don't know why it's called Warhammer. I just thought it's because, you know, war. But why would you use a hammer in war? Unless it's, you know, the one to the side here.
Yeah. Well, so, like, there's the old medieval weapon, which was a warhammer, just a big-ass hammer used for beating people, because plate mail was really hard to stab through, so swords were basically useless against it. So people start using maces and hammers and stuff, because you could just... It doesn't matter if I can't stab your organs, if I can just pummel your armor into them. So a warhammer was actually a weapon, which makes sense. But the name comes from fantasy, and it just carried over into 40k once they started that, because there were 3 editions of fantasy before we got to 40k being released. So 40k edition 1 was released alongside fantasy edition 3, I believe. So it comes from within fantasy, and they just kept using the name. So have you heard of Sigmar?
Yes, Age of Sigmar.
Right, which is obviously the third iteration of Warhammer. Or, well, the third major iteration. There's, like, Blood Bowl and all the other stuff, which are technically there, but we're not going into Blood Bowl.
We're not going into that. No, not today.
That's a whole other story. We'll do a special episode on Blood Bowl for a laugh. So, there is a Warhammer within Warhammer Fantasy called Galmaraz, right? Which is the Warhammer that Prince at the time, Sigmar, who was a human prince, wielded. It was like his quintessential hammer, right? Or not quintessential, that's the wrong word. Iconic, I guess. Hammer that he wielded, because it showed like a big moment in fantasy. Because for a long time, a lot of the races that you would assume would be friends didn't really care about each other. So elves, humans, dwarves, typically shown as being like begrudging friends, weren't really interested in each other in any meaningful way. and then a greenskin war boss captured the High King of the Dwarves, and he was murdering and eating his way through all the dwarves that he had captured. So he was eating all the king's retinue in front of him. And when he got down to he got to a point that he was going to murder and torture the last of the dwarves in front of the king before killing him. And then out of nowhere, a ton of these random human tribesmen just pile out of the woods and stuff and start kicking orc ass. And you've got Sigmar just going toe to toe with this gigantic orc war boss. I'm sure he ends up getting disarmed, or he doesn't have a weapon in the first place. I can't remember which, but he ends up fighting this war boss, basically one-on-one with bare hands, just going at him. And one of his people frees the dwarf king, who picks up his hammer, which was obviously taken off of him by the orcs when he was captured, and throws it to Sigmar. So Sigmar ends up wielding this enchanted dwarven hammer that he uses to demolish this orc war boss. And as thanks for saving him, the king gives him the hammer, which is Galmaraz.
Oh.
And that hammer is where the name comes from.
That is where Warhammer comes from.
That is where the name comes from the great Warhammer Galmaraz, which is a cool name, actually. I quite enjoy saying it.
Galmaraz.
It's a good name. But yeah, it just occurred to me while I was typing up the notes for this one. I was like, I've never mentioned why it's called Warhammer, and we're 32 or 33 episodes in.
Oh god, that's actually a lot.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. We're going to be approaching 50 by the end of this season.
That's very true.
Yeah.
That's very true. And hopefully you guys are enjoying my growth in terms of Warhammer, my knowledge. I mean, you asked me if I know what Sigmar is, and I immediately, right?
You do, I think.
I'm still a noob. I'm definitely still a noob, but hey, I know about the Warhammer universe, and yeah.
You're learning, good. And the best thing is that's the part we haven't even talked about yet. You still know.
I think we have talked briefly about it when we have played Warhammer Darktide.
Oh yes, quite possibly. Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah,
I think we talked about it because that's not something that people here in the podcast can, it's not something that they have heard us actively speaking about, but it's something that we just chat about while we've been playing. So yeah.
We do chat about a lot of random stuff while we play games.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, shall we get into today's episode?
Let's do it.
Now that the nonsense is over. So, Mez,
I'm a baby.
Yes.
I'm
as
a
you
baby.
might expect, in this episode, you are a baby.
Yes.
And as we've covered until now, it's about, 700 to 800 in the 30th millennia. Slaanesh has been born, Eldar getting, decimated, warp storms are finally cleared, and the Emperor is ready to do his stuff and start his crusade.
Yes.
But that's not where your story begins. Your story, if I can find my TV remote, and I can't, never mind. Your story begins on the planet right here, which is Baal.
Oh, the planet of Baal. That rings a bell.
Yeah? I think you'll remember it from one of the times that I've went into a big tangent about nonsense going on.
Probably. Alright, just continue. I'm not going to get it, but I think it rings a bell.
Yeah. So, this planet here is Baal, but you didn't land on Baal itself. You landed on one of the two moons that orbit it. So, the two moons are Baal Primus and Baal Secundus. You landed on Baal Secundus, right? Your incubation pod crashed to Earth on a towering cliffside in a desert on Baal Secundus.
Nice.
Great place to land. At least you're doing better than last week when you landed in a barren, wolf-riddled tundra.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no wolves on Baal, at least. That's something.
Giant wolves that's just going to take me in. Now, the thing is evidently it's always going to be horrendous how my story starts as a baby, but hey-ho.
It's cute that you think so. A couple of them are actually, weirdly okay.
Ryan, I'm literally coming from a warp storm and just like landing crashing to a planet. How can that be pleasant in any way, shape, or form? Like, what do you mean?
Right. So far, you've been abandoned in the woods and abandoned in a tundra, right? There's only so many places you can be abandoned. You know what I mean? Like, at a certain point, it seems like you don't really respect the writing skills of the Games Workshop staff if you think that they're just going to keep abandoning you in horrible environments. At some point, you're going to land somewhere and be found by normal people and be raised in a reasonable way. Like,
Wait, yeah.
odds are it's going to happen eventually, you know? Like, there was 20 Primarchs. You've got, like, you know what I mean? A 5% chance of one of them being okay, I guess.
Wait, you said 20 Primarchs.
Yeah, there were 20.
Right? Have you heard about there's supposedly 21, and one of them crashed from the warp storm and landed deep in the water to never be found?
I feel like that was nonsense, but okay.
It is nonsense, but hey, oh, it's plausible. You never know.
Well, actually, interestingly, there technically are 21. Well, no, there technically were 21. Currently, there's technically like 15 of them, because a lot of them die.
I mean, yeah.
That aside, like, Great Crusade time, there was technically 19 of them running around, even though we only made 20, and 2 of them had been killed off by that point.
Yeah.
Like, the Emperor had killed 2 of them personally, including their legions by that stage. So, you know. Okay, so. Baal Secundus is very unfortunately not like Terra. In ancient times, the 2 moons of Baal had wonderful, like, lush garden life and everything like that. They were great worlds to support human life, which is why there were human colonies there. But Baal itself, the planet that the 2 moons obviously orbit, was always a bit like Mars. It was always kind of a red desert planet. But it wasn't necessarily bad for human life. You just had to go into the colonization knowing it was going to be a desert planet. You know? That's doable. We can manage that. Build a lot of solar panels. You'll be fine. Like, you know what I mean? You can make it work.
Infinite power.
Exactly, right?
Yes.
You'll be okay. But, right, now, for the record, records of this time that I'm about to talk about are questionable at best and wildly misleading at worst. But sometime around the Dark Age of technology, you know, start of the Age of Strife, somewhere around there, the worlds fell into mass civil war, which left the planets and its moons as little more than radioactive hellscapes.
Oh.
Now, that was a very long time ago. Right? That was thousands of years ago that occurred. So at current day, there are still patches of radiation, but the whole, you know, like, globes aren't all just radioactive nonsense now. But there are, like, areas that are really dangerous for radioactivity.
Yeah.
So, not great place to land, but here you lay on a cliff top in a desert on a moon racked with radiation. Also, I want you to know, you're about as far away as you could possibly get from Terra. You're like, you're like away over in, like, the galactic east. Actually, you could go a lot further. You could be over on, like, the fringes of the galaxy. But you're pretty far away. A lot of people landed a lot closer.
I feel like there was a hint to who it is, but continue.
You haven't had a hint as to who it is yet, unless you recognize Baal attached to them, to be honest.
The thing is, it reminds me of... I've heard it before. I can't remember what
you definitely have. But you're going to love this one, don't worry. So, right. The thing is, there's only a couple of things on Baal Secundus that wouldn't kill you as soon as they found you. And an incubation pod hurtling down through the atmosphere and pummeling into a cliffside draws a lot of attention.
Of course.
So odds are something that found you was just going to eat you. Now, luckily for you, you were found by humans. Unfortunately, they also intended to kill you.
Of course.
So you were found by members of a tribe of humans known as the Folk of Pure Blood. Now see, this was a suspicious situation. An infant hurled from the stars is a weird thing. So they were skeptical at best, as you might imagine.
Of course, naturally.
Yeah, but you were like a baby, you know? So they checked you out and they were like, cool, so he appears to be a perfectly normal human baby. Other than, he's got a couple like weird growths, but like otherwise, he seems to be perfectly fine. And they kind of went back and forward on whether or not to kill you or not. Because there's a thing with the planet being, you know, partially irradiated, is that there are like purebloods, which is why these people are called the folk of the pureblood, because they're normal humans. And then there are also tens upon tens of thousands of mutants running around the planet as well. So they were kind of looking at you going, maybe it's a mutant baby. Maybe we should just end it now and save ourselves some hassle. But in the end, compassion kind of took over and they decided to take you in. So somehow you beat the odds on that one. I'm not really sure how you managed that. Luck from day one, basically.
I mean, I guess I was a cute baby, Ryan. You never know.
That's it. Although, to be fair, that's basically where your luck runs out.
Oh, great. Let's get into it.
Yeah. So you were taken in by the tribe. You grew up quickly, as, you know, Primarchs are tend to do.
Yes.
So by the age of 3 weeks old, right? So 3 weeks as we would know them, right? Because obviously different planets will have different day and night cycles and stuff. But it's like 3 weeks worth of time by Terran standards, right?
Yeah.
You were about the size of a 3-year-old by Terran standards. So you're now like a small child rather than a baby after 3 weeks. Yeah, yeah, probably slightly more than that. I don't really know the age groupings. So you could walk pretty easily, and you were quickly growing into your strength. And, you know, the growths that you had were also growing too. By this age, you actually sported a pair of pure white wings from your back. And yes. There it is. He clocks who it is. I knew that was going to be the line that tipped you off. So, all right. So one day when you were basically like around that 3 week mark, 3-4 weeks, you were walking around, exploring a little, you know, as children tend to do. They're just kind of hobbling about like, oh, what's over here? What's over there? And you were set upon by a colossal beast native to the world. Now, I'll show you it here. This is a fire scorpion. Right? See this bad boy? 10 to 11 feet long.
Okay.
This ain't a normal scorpion, my dude. This thing is massive.
Yeah, but it's nothing compared to me.
Well, that's it. Because this thing, 10 to 11 feet long, heavily armored carapace, and the tail can punch through armor easily, and then injects venom that burns you from the inside out, which is why it's called a fire scorpion, for the record. Yeah, they're horrible things. But you tore it apart with your bare hands.
Wait, how old was I at this point?
You were 3, or you were 4 weeks roughly, but you were like the size of a 3-year-old. You basically just grabbed this thing and pulled it apart.
Oh my god.
Well,
I'm badass.
You know what, right? Have you ever seen like a small child petting a dog way too hard because they don't know the strength?
Yes.
Imagine you had the strength of a Primarch. You know? It's kind of one of them. Like, I've seen like small children do actual harm to animals by accident because they don't know the strength. Imagine the strength of a Primarch.
It's like, you know, that weird kid. Everybody had this friend who was a weird kid who liked spiders or like stuff, like taking off their legs or taking up wings and flies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And imagine that not being like a mosquito, but like a, what would you say, 11 feet long freaking scorpion. Bruh.
Yeah. So yeah, you just tore it apart with your bare hands. You murdered this thing. It didn't stand a chance. So now that was fun. The thing is, you didn't show any fear while you're facing this thing, right? You just slew it with your bare hands while your tribesmen watched in awe, and I imagine a little bit of terror.
Yeah, I would be scared too, man.
Yeah. If I saw a toddler kill that thing, I'd be horrified. Like, all right, he's homeless now. That is an orphan now.
Yeah, just a couple of weeks old. But imagine like a couple of years. This dude can take rip the planet apart. Like,
Exactly. It becomes Galactus. Just
kill it
eating
with
planets.
fire.
Kill it with fire. Kill it
You
with
can't
fire
even
before
do
it lays
that.
eggs.
You can't even do it with that. It's not even enough. You can't feed it to the lion, bro. It will kill the lion.
Oh, that's a fair point.
God damn. Okay.
That should have been Lionel Johnson's backstory. It should have been eaten by the Calibanite lion and then just tore its way out of his stomach.
Oh yeah.
That would have been much cooler.
It would have been a nice like one-liner, you know, like feed him to the lions, but can't be killed by the lions. King of the jungle, bitch.
Okay, so all right, around or some point around this time, your powers began to grow more, right? So you started to grow into the whole being a Primarch thing in the coming years, and
Yeah.
you began to have visions, right? And they immediately seemed like total nonsense, but then the things in the visions started to come true.
Oh, I feel like I've heard this before.
Yeah, it's
Like
almost
last
like
week.
yeah, it's almost like you inherited your father's powers for seeing the future.
Yes.
Strange that.
Not just deja vu, but actually visions.
So by the time you were a year old, you were already grown to the size of a young man in his prime.
Bruh.
You soon outpaced your teachers in weapon combat. You could fly high over the deserts of Baal Secundus on your mighty wings. You could walk the irradiated lands without a radiation suit. You were a force to be reckoned with. Now, as you so easily excelled beyond standard humans of your tribe, you soon came to guide them, leading them to prosperity. Because the thing is, between your, ridiculous intelligence and, ability to intake information so fast, your ability to fly, which gave you a much better view over the world, and your visions of the future, when it came to battle strategy, you had much more advantage than everyone else did, but also strategy in basically every other way. If you're trying to find a path forward, you knew the best way because you could see it better than anyone else could. Or you'd know which way would get you killed because you saw the avalanche coming. Stuff like that. So you ended up being seen as this like source of wisdom as well. So people would come to you for advice. And here you are in all your glory.
Yeah, beautiful. Oh, sorry, handsome.
Absolutely wonderful. No, beautiful is the word for Sanguinius.
That's very true, though. That's true. Wait, hold on. That's why they like me as a baby. I'm just a likable guy.
That's it. You're just the best guy.
I'm just the best guy, you know?
Yeah. So, around this time, right, around this point where you were kind of like becoming to be a leader of sorts within your tribe was set upon by a group of Baalite mutants, so the mutants that roam this planet. Now, there were hundreds of them, right? And it was like a surprise attack, like an ambush. They came from everywhere all of a sudden. And in the ensuing panic, because it was a surprise attack, and you've got like men struggling to like protect children or possibly women and children. You've got parents trying to protect their kids. You've got the warriors trying to like assemble everyone so they can protect the panic that ensued and the fear that came out of it. You saw your people, your friends and family truly fearing for their lives for the first time, and with good cause too. And seeing this, a rage built within you, a rage equal to your purity, which rose till it consumed you in darkness. This day, the powers of a Primarch were truly displayed. A nimbus of light played about your head as you took to the battle, slaughtering the mutants all single-handedly as your people watched the terrible sight in awe of your power. The first instance of the Black Rage showing in Sanguinius was when he saw his people, terrified for their lives at these mutants, fell into a rage, murdered them all.
I can be your hero, baby.
Somehow the wings make that more suitable. I don't know why.
It gets all the holy vibe, honestly.
That's it, yeah. So, soon after that event, the people of the blood... Oh, by the way, the tribe is sometimes referred to as the blood, rather than the folk of pure blood, because that's a mouthful. So the people of the blood began to revere you as a god for what they had seen you do. And with you as their leader, you rallied the other tribes of Baal, because there are other tribes of humans that aren't mutants, and you took to the fight. Yeah, you took the fight to the mutants, scouring the moon of their foulness. Easily done, considering your powers of foresight and unmatched battle prowess.
Yeah.
So, with the mutants cleared, the tribes of Baal Secundus had a second chance, I would say, to carve out and build a civilization on this irradiated moon that they had called home. Because before, they had to live in tribes. They had to be moving and stuff like that. They couldn't really take the time to build anything properly, because the mutants will just turn up and mess your day up. But now they don't have to worry about that. They can actually, set foundations properly.
Yeah.
And now, the people of Baal Secundus believed you a divine leader and thought that paradise would follow in your bloody footsteps.
Alright.
You're very much one of those, warrior gods.
Yes.
It's like,
yes.
I'll slaughter your enemies like putting them through a wood chipper. But dear God, will our home be nice when I'm done.
Any means necessary,
That's it. Any means necessary. So, as time passed, with you leading those of pure blood of Baal Secundus, the people began to thrive, as you would expect. And one day, while you were addressing your people, now, the people flocked to hear you speak in the tens of thousands, right? So you've got an assembly of tens of thousands, 40,000-ish people that have all travelled from God knows where just to hear you speak, right? It's the whole thing. And as you're giving your address, a stranger comes among you. And he stood in the middle of the kind of squad of people, of all the, random people. He stood as odd as every human there, despite his obvious distinction from the others. And when you ended your speech by shouting a chant as you soared into the air over your people, which, by the way, every person there chanted back, this stranger knew you were one of his lost sons. Now, you met with this man in front of all those present, knowing who he was and why he was there, because you'd seen this day coming in your visions. Now, you asked this man a question which none of his sons had ever asked, or would ever ask him. What would happen if you refused his offer?
Okay.
Right? Because obviously, the Emperor just turns up to his kids and is like, I'm your dad, you're gonna work for me, you're gonna kill demons, you're gonna be fucking happy about it. And they all just kind of go, alright, whatever. Oh, I get an army? Sure. They all kind of go with it.
What actually happens if you refuse? Because Sanguinius' life at this point is quite alright.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
It's I don't need the glamour. I don't need a whole army for me. People already worship me at this point. I don't need that extra stuff. I'm Gucci,
See, now that's a good question, and that's why you asked. But the Emperor's only response was that he knew you would not refuse him because you wished to save the people of the galaxy just as you saved the people of Baal Secundus.
Yep.
So he knew you were going to agree because it gave you the ability to go out and save more people,
Yeah, my one weakness. God dang it.
I know.
I'm too good.
So you knelt before your father, and as you did, crystalline tears rolled from your eyes, landed in the sand, and where they did, flowers bloomed. Don't know why that happens, but it's a thing. Just so you know. Just thought I'd make a point of explaining that part, because it's kind of weird. I don't know why that's a thing that happens. But yeah.
Imagine, that must be so easy if you have a girlfriend. Oh shit, I forgot to buy flowers. Just have some bad thoughts. Oh god, I'm so fat, right? And then, there we go.
Some nice roses.
That's a lot of stuff. Also, one for myself, because...
Cheer you up.
Yeah.
Cheer you up after all those dark thoughts.
That must be so easy. But yeah, continue.
Yeah. So...
I'm sorry. This is how my mind works, by the way.
I know, I've met you.
It's not always easy.
So you asked, or well, you demanded one thing of your father, right? Before
Yes.
you agree, which was that he leave the purebloods of Baal in peace, right?
Yes.
Don't fuck with them. Leave them as they are, right? They don't need your bullshit going on. Don't fucking industrialize this planet like you do all the others that you take come across. Leave this world to these people and leave them as they are, unharassed.
Yes.
So the Emperor looks around at the people that have kind of rallied around you. He looks around at the crowd around him. And the Emperor saw the people of Baal, pure and resolute, empowered with a small fraction of your will, and asked you to stand. He agreed to your demand, knowing that these people would stay pure. Having been led by you and influenced by you, they would be some of the Imperium's proudest, most loyal sons. Thus, you pledged yourself to the Emperor and the Imperium of Man.
Yes.
Yeah. So with that, you were brought into the Imperial fold. Your strongest warriors were brought in and underwent the process to become Astartes with the Ninth Legion, the Blood Angels.
Mm-hmm.
Those who stayed on Baal and its moons were tasked with defending the world, which would become the lifeblood of the Blood Angels Legion and a foothold of humanity within the galaxy. So, for the record, the Blood Angels only ever and have only ever recruited for their legion from Baal and its two moons. So the training ground thing for it is actually still on Baal Secundus. It's at Angel's Landing, which is the cliffside where you pummeled the earth to begin with. They built a small town there, and that's where they do the trials for becoming a blood angel. So people from all over the three worlds that make up Baal, or the planet Baal and the two moons, flock to Angel's Landing to undergo the trials to become a space marine with the Blood Angels.
And without having to recap the trials to become a Blood Angel, it's grim. I remember that. It's quite horrific.
Actually, the part you're thinking of isn't the trial to become a Blood Angel. It's part of the process once you've passed the trials. Once you're already an acolyte of the chapter or the Legion, and you're undergoing the process to become a space marine rather than a human, then it gets real grim. Until that point, easy.
I'm messing up the point, but the thing is, end result is grim.
Yeah, Blood Angels typically quite grim, to be honest.
Yes. But definitely cool when the whole thing is over.
Very cool.
Hey, ma'am, thank you, ma'am.
That's it. Space vampires. Doesn't get any better. So, soon you were given your suit of power armor, which is, as you can see here, an ornate set of golden artificer armor depicting a burning heart and the worlds of Terra, Baal, and its moons. Yes, very fancy.
Yes.
Yeah. So, the thing is, right, you know how with the other legions, so with the Lion, as we covered the first time, he spent 3 weeks, with the Emperor to kind of get up to scratch with everything. They all do this thing where they have a little bit of training and teaching to get them up to scratch with how the Imperium does stuff and things like that. And then they take their legion and then off they go. You didn't do that. You spent 3 years learning, the ways of the Imperium. You asked to be placed with another legion and their Primarch to learn their way of doing things so that you would be better suited to lead your legion properly.
Yeah.
So you were placed with the most experienced of the Emperor's sons, which obviously was the first one he found, Horus Lupercal. So for 3 years, you walked alongside Horus and the Luna Wolves, which were his legion at the time.
Yes. The question is, did Horus like me?
Well, that's the thing. You and Horace became best friends.
I was about to say, because Horace is normally not a friendly guy, not even to his brothers.
Yeah.
But Sanguinius is the best guy, so of course he's going to
Yeah,
like me.
Horace and Sanguinius were like the best friends of all the brothers. Like
Yeah.
every Primarch had a brother they liked best, right? But basically every Primarch liked Sanguinius other than Angron.
Yes,
And even
this is
him,
something
he didn't hate him, he just was kind of annoyed by him.
he couldn't be bothered. But that's the thing, right? Like, that's something I picked up on. Every Primarch has somebody, a brother they love, and somebody they absolutely despise, except for Sanguinius.
Yeah.
Like you say here with Angron, the least, like, he's like, can't be bothered, but I don't mind the guy. Like, I just don't give a shit.
Yeah, the whole thing stems from like a rivalry that was made between them, between their legions, that they didn't really care about. But because the rivalry was like talked about by their sons, by the legions, or primarily by the World Eaters, Angron's legion, because Sanguinius' guys did not give a shit. But because it was talked about by them, they heard about it and then were like, oh, for God's sake, this again. So, like, it caused a little bit of animosity, but they didn't really care.
No.
No. But no, even, like, everyone liked Sanguinius, and Sanguinius basically liked everyone. That was the thing. But Horace and Sanguinius were, like, best friends. But then you've got the same thing with loads of them. Like, Magnus and Perturabo were really good friends. They were, like, out of all the brothers, those two liked each other best. Things like that. They all have favourites.
Yeah.
But then you've also always got rivalries, like how Liam and Russ fucking hated Magnus and vice versa.
Yeah.
There's always one, you know? So, for 3 years, you were with the Luna Wolves and Horus. In that time, you actually became good friends with a couple of his captains as well. Primarily, Ezekiel Abaddon, who would go on to become Abaddon the Despoiler and launch the Black Crusades, as you know about.
Yep.
And Tarek Torgadon, one of the few loyalists who ended up leading a rebellion against all the traitor legions that were at the Istvan incident where they burned the planet to try and kill off all the good guys and the bad legions. Torgadon actually survived the bombardment and then led the rebellion troops against his brothers. It's a cool guy. So Sanguinius was like best friends with all these dudes. At a certain point, it seems like maybe he was just playing the odds. He was like, look, 50 of the shot, these guys all end up hating each other at the end. If they all like me, I can pick my side.
He's a strategy genius when it comes to that sort of thing. Let's just say that he's playing his cards the right way.
Yeah, that's it. Keeping them close to the chest.
Yes, keep my enemies close, or friends close, and my enemies even closer.
You know, that's it. That's why you're best friends with Horus.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. So after, spending the 3 years with the Luna Wolves, you met with your legion before battle for the first time on a planet called Tegar Pantaris, or Pentaris, sorry. Pentaris.
Okay.
And you began your meeting of them by learning the name of every man there. Yeah. Keep in mind, there's like 100,000 in a legion.
Yeah.
Like, this might have just been a section, but even if it's still like 30,000 guys, that's a lot of guys. But yeah, you learned the name of every man there, and then you gave a speech to the Legion in which you pledged yourself to the Legion, not the other way around, which is very rare. Usually you make them pledge to you, because they're your kids.
Yeah.
You weren't about that shit. You were like, no, I've got you guys. I'll be a good leader, I promise.
Yo, I love that. Sanguinius is honestly.
You see why he's just the best guy.
Yeah.
And you ended your speech by declaring that the 9th Legion was no longer broken and scattered. And with that, your sons returned the pledge, pledging themselves to you with zealous fervor, I might add. They were real fucking excited to pledge themselves to you. And with that, your sons and you were, went in a battle for the first time as a legion. Very fancy. Actually, there's a funny thing. Sanguinius is often depicted wearing this, like, it looks like a leopard print cloak. And it's because in the first battle on that planet, he murdered I think it's either Carcharodon or Caradon. I can't remember which it is. But it's basically like a giant snow panther. And you murdered it during that war, and then they made a war cloak out of it for you. So he walks around wearing this big weird like pelt cloak all the time. But it's just a reminder of your first battle with your legion, which is quite cool actually.
Ah.
In time to come, you would make allies and enemies amongst your brothers in equal measure. So we did mention this. So the ones you were closest with, obviously Horus was numero uno. You were also really good friends with Lehman Russ and Jagatai Khan. Just all good guys. But as I was kind of hinting to earlier, there was also this like weird rivalry between your guys and the World Eaters of Angron. It's purely because the Blood Angels ended up with a reputation as being really good shock troopers, so you just fire them in and they decimate everyone there in the first 10 seconds, right? That they were great for, like, remember, you played a lot of Halo, didn't you?
Yes.
You know the ODSTs, Orbital Drop Shock Troopers?
Yeah.
So you just land them in the enemy base, they pop out the cartridges and start gunning everything down around them. That's basically what the kind of stuff your guys did. And you were good at it.
Effective.
Exactly, very effective. Thing is, right, in reality, yeah, neither of the Primarchs really gave a shit. And part of that is because Sanguinius didn't get any benefit of thinking of himself as being a better shock trooper than Angron. He didn't give a fuck. And the other side of it is that Sanguinius knew his sons were not as violent or aggressive as Angron's guys. So they were never actually the same, like, in a comparable way. They weren't trying to do it in the same way. So he didn't see them as being rivals. They just happened to accomplish the same goals. You know? Yeah. So it was a very unfounded rivalry, but it caused some friction between the Legion's troops, but not really the Primarchs. It was just another thing you had to discuss once in a while with someone, you know? It's like, oh, yeah, this again. Don't worry, I'll talk to the captains. Tell them to tell the guys. And in time to come, you were essentially looked on as an advisor for basically every other Primarch at some point, because you were incredibly wise. You could literally see the future a lot of the time, and you were just a great guy. You were just fun to talk to. So even people like Horus, once he became War Master, would still listen to you and your advice, which was a big deal, because by that point he was basically only listening to the Emperor, and he was kind of being a dick. But he still listened to you, which was a big change. It was a big help. You know, it really slowed down that whole heresy thing a little bit.
Yeah.
So this is the point where we would usually go into the whole Great Crusade thing, which we're not doing in this season because we're going to cover the ins and outs of the kind of the midsection of these stories during episodes about the legions, because otherwise we'll have very little to talk to about the legions. So we would usually skip to the aftermath. Thing is, you don't really have an aftermath of the heresy because you don't survive it.
I know.
So we're kind of gonna cover the latter end of it that is basically purely focused on your character rather than the Legion. Okay?
Yeah.
Primo. So, as like the midsection of the whole like heresy thing going on, you were one of the ones that was like distracted on the other side of the galaxy with the Lion and Gilliman and the Khan. No, not the Khan. Corvus Corax. You were one of the ones that was like separated from Terra, right? And due to, well, a situation ended up at that. We're going to get into that properly when we're doing the Legion episodes, because we can go into it in better detail. Otherwise, this would take about 3 hours to cover this episode. But basically, they ended up with a situation where all the guys that were separated, all the Primarchs separated, had a choice to make where one of them could escape to Terra with a bunch of, or with their troops and, you know, help in the siege. And they decided that Sanguinius was the one to go, right? So Gilliman and the Lion basically acted as a distraction so that you and your troops could get to Terra to help in the siege. And that's part of the reason none of them could get there, because they made sure you could, which delayed them further. So you were there from from the starting point of the siege, from like day one of the actual battles breaking out. You were on site, ready to roll, which is good. All like in the kind of run up to this, before you had been you had been kind of sent this way by the Lion and Gilliman, you had started seeing visions of your own death at Horus's hands. Right? You knew it was coming. And you actually began to fall into the Black Rage properly, because these visions were bringing about the rage that you would feel at the time where you were facing Horus. So you're having these visions of the future, and then actually feeling the rage currently, and you were kind of being blinded by it. So there was a point where you almost actually killed one of your own men while you were traveling to Terra. You managed to recover yourself, and the guy was fine, as far as I'm aware. But, you know, it was starting. Things were going down, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So after you arrived on Terra, you met with Malkador, Dorn, Jagatai Khan, and Ross. And obviously Dorn was organizing defensive, giving the orders, whatnot. And during this time, you were seen as like a source of morale for the troops of the palace. Because they were all conscripts and shit like that. There were only so many actual soldiers. The rest of them were basically everyone we could round up. Like, if you live on Earth and you have hands and can hold a gun, you're fucking in this now, lads.
You got drafted.
That was it. So even, like, you had millions of actual troops, and then you had so many billion of not actual troops that still had guns. So you were, like, a source of morale for those guys. For everyone, really, but especially for those ones that just had no business being there, basically. Basically just Operation Cannon fodder.
Sounds like a soccer, football, manager for like a junior side team. Like, it doesn't matter at all, just go out there and play, but I gotta give them morale, you know? It's like these little kids gotta get motivation somewhere, you know? It's, oh god.
That's kind of it, yeah. I think the info they got was basically, if you can hit one enemy with a bullet, or if you can be hit by one bullet instead of one of our guys, we're considering you a victory on an individual level. I think that's basically how they were treated.
Wow.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, again, you
just
handed
a distraction or human shield.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Like, to be fair, you've handed like several billion random factory workers las rifles and went, good luck. Like, right. You know what I mean? At least if they act as a human shield, you'll call that a win. Like, that's something. So
they could just all for time, essentially.
That's it. You know what I mean? If you can keep our real troops from dying for a bit while they actually kill stuff, great.
Yeah, stall for time and make them waste their ammunition.
There you go. Yeah, that's it.
It's a good tactic, actually.
Yeah. So the first time that you kind of like sally out of the gates is when Jagatai Khan goes out to do like a attack run, basically. His guys love jet bikes, so he and a bunch of his dudes just start like raking around the battlefield in random formations, gunning down enemy troops. But he gets knocked off of his bike by a squad of Death Guard, and obviously is being beset by them. So you get sent out to go and save him. So you go out and basically just drag Jagatai Khan back into the gates. And then later still, because you've been told not to like fuck around on the battlefield by Dorn, who is technically in charge at this point. So later still, you are sent out to defend the Helios gate to allow troops to retreat within the gate while they're being attacked. Because basically the gate or the area in front of the gate is lost. There's too many troops coming. They're gonna lose, right? They're gonna die. So they open the gate to allow the troops that are outside to retreat within. So you and your guys are sent out to like act as an actual suppressing fire, because you're obviously much better than the human troops, and you can do that. But when you go out, it's World Eaters that are attacking. So Angron is there, who is now a big-ass red demon, by the way, with wings and stuff. And he challenges you And all you do in response to the challenge is salute him and tell him that today is not the day, but that fight will come. And then you just go back and he's an angry guy anyway, but that definitely pissed him off.
That pissed him off badly.
Yeah. So later still in the siege, the next time you go out of the gates is because they have brought a Warlord Titan to the gates, or they're bringing a Warlord Titan up. Now, a Titan is actually a dangerous thing for gates, because a Warlord Titan is like 108 feet tall and weighs thousands of tons. So it can like punch a hole through a wall pretty easy. Even, well, it would still take some time for it to get through the walls of Terra, but you know, you don't want to give it that. So you and your guys are sent out to try and deal with that. So you just keep attacking the head of it till you destroy it. And the thing crumbles. And Warlord Titans are so big that they can't really fight like infantry troops or like small things, right? Because how would they? They're made for destroying like citadels and fortresses and, you know, like heavy stuff. That's what they're for. They're like an anti-tank at lowest.
Breaching walls, you know, big
stuff. That kind of stuff. Yeah, they're very much a siege weapon, right? So they're always accompanied, well, if they're available, they're accompanied by what are called warhounds, which are smaller titans. They're like 20 feet tall, 25 feet tall, that kind of thing, which take on the infantry and the, you know, small tanks and stuff, so that the titan, the big one, can do its job. Yeah. All the Warhound Titans that were following this big one ran away after you destroyed it. Yeah, these guys are like in like a Gundam war suit, and we're like, fuck this! That guy's got wings and a spear. I'm out.
I ain't having none of this.
Yeah, they bailed the fuck out of there after you killed their boss.
Let's go. I mean, that's what I said, Ryan. Cut the head off, and the body will die.
Well, that's very true. To be fair, I'd probably run if you did that, because that thing might fall on you. And again, it weighs thousands of tons.
That's a bad thing.
Yeah. Not that you'd know about it. As soon as it touched you, it'd be over. It'd be the end. There's no surviving that. So we then move forward to the final days of the siege, right? And at the final days of the siege, you were tasked with defending or leading the defense of the Eternity Gate, which is the last gate before the Sanctum Imperialis, which is the inner sanctum of the Imperial Palace, right?
Yeah.
Now, this was an interesting time, because this was like the make or break moment, right? You couldn't fall here. You had to win this fight. So before the battle, you made an announcement. You like giving speeches. You gave a speech to the troops. And basically within this, you said that anyone who wished to leave could leave now. Right? You gave them the option. Because again, there's billions of conscripts. Like, people have just been roped into this all here. And you're like, look, you're probably going to die. If you want to go, go. Like, go get the last 10 minutes with your family if you can't, if they're still alive. Right? If you want to. Not one person left. Right? All of the people there wished to fight alongside you. They believed in you. And here is you Sanguinius at the Eternity Gate.
Damn.
It's very cool.
Yo, I don't know if people can see this. I'm getting goosebumps right now.
It's pretty cool. So, with that speech ended, you opened the gates, took to the field, and beheaded another Titan.
Of course. Because
that's your party trick now, apparently.
Yeah, it's my job. I like to do it.
Yeah. So, you then continued to slay traitors wherever you found them. You know, go flying around the battlefield, beheading anyone that you thought looked a bit evil, I guess.
Yep.
Until you were attacked by a bloodthirster of Khorne, Ka Banda. Now, we've mentioned this guy before, and at this point, Sanguinius had actually fought him before and had his leg broken by it, right? So there's a grudge against this guy, and you ended up in this stunning aerial battle, which ended with you snapping his spine with the hilt of your sword, and then dumping him back to the ground, where he was eaten by other smaller demons.
Let's go.
Get fucked, Cabanda. That's what you get for breaking my leg, you prick.
Get good, son.
That's it. Is that an alarm?
Oh, sorry. No.
Okay.
It was the alarm of the battle, you know.
Ah!
It's finally been won.
Good to know that iPhones and their crappy alarms are still going to be around in the year 30,000. Probably will be. They'll just be getting bigger and bigger again.
I mean, the Empire is Apple, so yeah.
Quite possibly. So, you then... Right. So you were obviously tired from your aerial battle of stunning cinematic brilliance with Cabanda, because he is still a greater demon of Khorne, and he did manage to break your leg last time you fought him. So he's a tough guy, but you were alright. You were tired, and you were a bit worn down, but you were okay. And you continued to fight. You continued to behead random traitors as you went along. Until, out of nowhere, like bloody John Cena, here comes Angron, ready for his battle. Again, you knew this was going to happen. You knew you were going to fight him. It was just a matter of time.
Yeah, today is the day.
That's it. Today is the day. It's been like 4 days, but apparently today is the day. See, he wanted to fight on Monday. It's now Thursday. Now it's time. Right? It fits your schedule better. So... obviously, you went into this battle weakened a bit, tired out, and kind of wore down a little bit. And keep in mind, he also has wings now because he's a demon. So you end up in, again, stunning aerial combat, which ends with him running you through with his sword. He impaled you with his sword. Now, he then thinks he's won because he's just impaled you. But you know what the thing about impaling someone is? To impale someone, you gotta be real fucking close to them. So you know what you did in response to the being impaled?
No.
You tore the butcher's nails out of his brain.
Yeah, no, that's disgusting.
Yeah, it made his head explode.
Yeah, very effective though.
Very effective.
But very disgusting.
Yes. But the thing is, with his head blown up, he kind of was banished back into the warp. Because he's a demon now. He's actually a demon now. He doesn't have, like, a physical body. He has to materialize here. So, with his body so heavily destroyed, he dematerialized back into the warp. So Angron was gone from this plane of existence. And all of his sons, all the World Eaters, who were being led by him, with their leader gone, just fell into, like, violent carnage and started attacking anyone. So they started murdering their own guys, which acted as a great distraction.
Yeah, I remember this. We talked about this before.
Yeah, in the actual Siege of Terra episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, they turned on their own guys, which acted as a great distraction, so you were able to get all the loyalists back into the Eternity Gate and seal it up again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, gate sealed, right? Everyone's back inside. A few hours go by at max. You get summoned by the Emperor. You're still bleeding from being stabbed by Angron.
Impaled, man.
Impaled.
Yes.
And the Emperor informs you that Horus has lowered the shields on his flagship as a direct challenge to him. Right? Horus wants to end this here and now. So, thing is, Emperor doesn't want you to come with. He wants you to stay and lead the defensive. Now, you were not having this. Right? You were like, fuck, staying behind. The reason is that you then explained that you've been having visions of your own death at Horus's hands. But not that you wanted to avoid it, but that you were trying to change your fate by challenging it head on. You know that thing of, like, if you know the future, and it's a bad one, trying to avoid it always seems to cause it. Right?
Yes.
That's what Sanguinius thought was going to happen. So he was like, no, if I just go to Horus, that won't be how it happens. I'm going to change it. And the thing is, Emperor spent millennia, literally tens of thousands of years, God knows how many more than that probably, actively trying to change the fates he sees. So he really resonated with this and was like, you know what, you're right, come with us, right? You're in, let's do this. So, you teleport onto Horus's flagship, the Vengeful Spirit, and because of Horus's warp bullshittery, the Imperial forces are scattered throughout the ship, right? The only ones that land where they were supposed to, which was a embarkation deck, were you and your honor guard, the Sanguinary Guard. They were like your veteran troops. They were you and them were the only ones that landed where you were supposed to. Everyone else was scattered through the ship in random places to make it harder for them to get to Horus en masse. Basically, it was trying to make it a one-on-one fight with the Emperor. And if Dorn and the Khan and everyone else all turn up one at a time, you can just murder them before the Emperor gets there, and then the Emperor doesn't have any backup. That was his logic. So, because you were the ones that landed where you were supposed to, you were the first one to get to Horus. Because you had obviously planned the route to take and everything like that. Now, no one else had a route to take that they had planned because they weren't in the right place. But you did, so you got to him first. So you fought your way through demons, Sons of Horus, and Wordbearers all through the ship, eventually arriving where Horus was, like on the bridge of the ship. And you both started arguing, right? The point being, you were both trying to leverage your deep past friendship to bring the other to your side of what was going on, right? But Horus basically just refused to agree to anything you said. He was just being a dick, basically. That's what it comes down to. He was very childish. It was like one step above, I know you are, but what am I? Honestly, it was a very childish argument. Naturally, eventually, battle breaks out. And the thing is, you are tired, bleeding, and have been impaled about 4 hours ago. So, you were no match for Horus. It's a simple fact.
Yeah.
So, in the entire fight, the only thing you managed to do was put a small chink in his armor. You basically got one hit on this guy and only damaged his armor a little bit in the entire fight. Right?
Yeah, because let's not forget, in a fight where Sanguinius is at 100% and Horus at 100%, Horus would still win.
Well, at this point, yes, because Horus has the Chaos Gods behind him. You know what I mean? He's not just Horus.
He's fueled up on the demon steroids, bro.
That's
of
it.
Course he's going to.
Horus is like, if Sanguinius was at 100%, Horus is 100%. Sanguinius would probably kill him. Sanguinius would probably take the bitch. Right? Especially if he went into the Black Rage kind of state, in that proper rage. He'd probably murder him, right? But at this point, it's like Sanguinius at like 30% because he's bleeding and fucked up, and Horus is at like 500% because he's got all the Chaos Gods powering him up. Right? You literally never stood any chance in this fight.
No.
Right? But you basically got one hit off and fucked his armor up a tiny bit. That's it. Right?
That kind of thing, like
it's like the idea of, if I'm gonna die, I'm at least gonna stab my enemy in the eye. But you didn't even manage that far. You basically scratched his shoe.
Well, shit.
Yeah. So the thing is, when Horus eventually laid you low, he didn't want to just kill you. He wanted to make it as painful as physically possible. So he did that by basically combining all the power of all the Chaos Gods into one psychic attack to basically put you in as much agony as is physically conceivable. The pain that you felt was so ultimate that even to this day, the Sons of Sanguinius carry that pain with them in their souls. It is the rage that Sanguinius felt, and ultimately the pain that they carry as the Black Rage.
Yeah.
The curse of their genome passed down from their father's genetics and the War Master's treachery. The only legion that actually really still carries something of the Horus heresy, other than the Black Legion, which isn't a real legion, it's just, Abaddon's ragtag army put together. These are like the only two groups that to this day in 40k still have a visible sign of the heresy, other than being chapters now. But, all that said, you did not die in vain. It is said that the sacrifice of Sanguinius bought the time the Emperor needed to reach Horus, and that the chink put in his armor by Sanguinius is what allowed the Emperor to deliver the final blow and kill Horus. See? And even the darkest part of Sanguinius' sacrifice, which is the Black Rage, while it is the curse of Sanguinius' sons to fall into the grips and become feral beasts burdened with a Primarch's rage, which obviously no mortal man or even Space Marine can handle, because Sanguinius barely could handle it.
Yeah.
Right? Even those feral creatures have saved countless innocent lives in millennia to come. There is a thing called, I can't remember what the name of it is. Oh crap, why have I forgotten? Anyway, there's a thing where chaplains of the Blood Angels and all their successor chapters lead squads of Blood Angels that have fallen to the Black Rage. So they're permanently feral, basically, as angry as enraged as Sanguinius was when he fought Horus. They're all permanently in that state till they die. And the chaplains, who are not in that state, they're normal people, lead them into battle as like a death company. That's what it's called. So, like, when all else is lost, the Blood Angels chapter will unleash the chaplain and the death company. And basically, they just send in a squad of feral Blood Angels to go take down the enemy. Because they can murder basically anything.
Yeah.
So even to this day, they are still used to do good. You know, they are a weapon that basically none can stand against. So innocents have been saved left, right, and center by these guys. Obviously, they murder a lot of innocents too, but you know, that aside.
The bigger picture.
Bigger
You have
picture.
to look at the bigger picture.
Yeah. So the troops you had taken with you to Horus's flagship, you know, the Sanguinary Guard, your elites, right? Only one of them survived the whole Horus heresy. It was a guy called Ascalon, or Ascalon? Something like that. There's some weird pronunciation in there. Weird angel name, right? So, after the heresy, and after the Codex Astartes was instated, so all the legions had to become chapters now, he was the one that ended up leading the Blood Angels and organizing them to become chapters instead of legions. And he ended up leading the Blood Angels for a time. Like their chapter, the main bulk of it. And what he did was he had all the champions of the chapter, so all the toughest, best warriors, most decorated soldiers, were the ones that ended up building the new chapters. And they took their troops, went all out, founded a new homeworld, built their own traditions, and founded new chapters from that. So it was the last living member of Sanguinius's honor guard that organized it all, which I think is quite cool. And just as an honorable mention, there's a guy I want to talk about who was one of the Blood Angels champions. So his name was Nasir Amit, right? His what's the term? His, I guess, nickname, his title was Flesh Tearer. Yeah, this guy, right? So like, say for example, you had like a Blood Angel, right? And then there was a glass box with a door in it. And inside that was like the Black Rage. And as they fell to it, they kind of got closer and closer until they went inside, right? Nasir Amit spends his entire life pressed up against the side of the box, begging to be inside. Right? This guy is constantly like 4 seconds from being totally encompassed by the Black Rage. He's just like in this weird demi-state of Black Rage as he fights all the time.
Lovely.
Which is why he's called the Flesh Tearer, because he's basically feral. So this guy founded one of the new chapters of Blood Angels. Not the kind of guy you want to entrust with something like that, but I mean, everyone needs like proper murdery troops once in a while, I guess. So he went out to a planet called, was it Cretacia? I believe is the name of their homeworld, which is a planet with a bunch of random tribes and a bunch of really big monsters and stuff. And it's just a really harsh planet, so all the people there are tough as anything. Proper tough as nails. And that's the planet they had as their homeworld. So he founded the Flesh Tearers, which are basically the one chapter of Space Marines you really don't want to turn up to help you. Like, I'm sure there's a bit in the Devastation at Baal when the Tyranids are attacking Baal, like the homeworld of the Blood Angels. When they're calling out like all the other like chapters for help. Like, so basically send all your guys to come and come and help the homeworld. And like, I'm pretty sure they don't hear anything back. They don't get a response from the Flesh Terrors, and basically everyone in the room is like, didn't need those guys. But they do actually turn up and they kick ass, because it turns out that feral space marines are a great way to fight space bugs. Like you can try and eat, like, the space bugs can try and eat the space marines, but the space marines in this case are going to try and eat the space bugs too. This is a very vicious cycle.
It's like fighting fire with fire, even bigger fire.
That's it, yeah. This is angrier fire with guns. Right? Like, yes. Yeah. Actually, they recently released a book which is about about the Flesh Terrors after the Devastation of Baal, and it's about them going back to their homeworld and stuff, and it's bloody excellent. So, now, we obviously did things a little bit differently in this episode because Sanguinius in question did not survive the heresy, so the pacing has to be a little different. The sections that are covered have to be a little bit different. So we'll probably find that in future as well, where, like, we're going to have one really short episode, for example, which, as you might guess, is Ferrus Manus, who dies about 3 days into Horus Turning Evil. So there is going to be like one really short episode, and as a side thing, there is going to be one really long episode, which I'm going to warn you personally about in advance so that you're well aware. There'll be a lot of planning for that one. And it's going to be the last episode of the season. I'm not going to say who it is. People that actually know these things, like know about the Primarchs a little bit, might be able to figure it out. But it's purely down to the fact that we have to kind of separate the Primarch story from the Legion story. And a lot of the time during the Crusade and the kind of build-up of the heresy, those stories are so heavily intertwined that you can't really separate them. So I'm having to like go, all right, well, that bit can be Legion side, and we'll cover all that in one. But yes. There is one character whose storyline is a lot more in-depth than a lot of the others, even through the heresy and things like that. There's a lot more goes on in it that are in very important points, and a lot goes on the Legion side of it too. So I have to separate them and just accept that the Primarch side of it is going to be longer, but it's going to cover the whole way through the heresy. Yeah. So there's that.
That's going to be the last episode of the season, right?
Yes, so it'll be like an extra long episode for the final episode.
I mean, you have to add a bit onto that, because in the end of the last episode of this season, we also do have to update the tier list.
Oh yes, that's in there too. Now, actually, for the record, there is one picture I forgot to show you, which is Sanguinius dead at Horus's feet when the Emperor arrives.
Well then.
Yeah!
Thank you, Ryan. I did not need to see that right now. I'm already distraught as is. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
It's fine.
Now, there is one last thing, right? And it's the tier list. Now, you've already got...
Change it.
Yeah, I didn't think we would. You've already got Sanguinius as numero uno. I didn't think it was going to change, but I have to give you the choice, you know? It's how we're doing things. It is a necessary detail. I'm expecting Conrad Kurz to end up fairly high up in this list, just so you know. And I don't know if all right, so I had to change the order I was going to do the episodes in a little bit, right? Because of the release of the release of the information about the Lion returning, which came up like a few days before we recorded. Yeah. So I had to speed run organizing the Lion as the first episode so I could talk about it, as you know. So the episode list has ended up in total disarray from where it was going to be. So, Yeah, I think the way it's working out is we're going to do all the loyalists, then all the traitors. Just so you know. Right? Because things tapered that way by accident. So I was going to stagger it 1 for 1, but it's not worked out that way because the line got dragged to the start. So bear with, people. Bear with. It'll all work out at the end. But I think that is all I had to say about our bro Sanguinius, since we all know he is the best boy. So says the tier list.
Guy. Yes.
Best guy. He's just the
Alrighty
best.
then. Well, do you want me to round it up then?
Go for it.
Well then, thank you guys for listening to this episode of Iterators of the Imperium podcast. It's been me, MEZ, and Ryan, and we will see you in the next one. Take care and peace.
Bye.